we're delighted that Prime Minister Gillard, Dima Amso, Sean, Osborne took the time to be with us, and we really respect and value our friendship and our partnership with them. I wanted to tell you about something that our Young Leaders Forum students decided to do. And they said, look, we need role models. We need role models for ethical, altruistic leadership. And they said, we want to start awarding people that we believe are ethical, altruistic leaders on the planet an award. And so we said, fine, we encourage that. And there are 2.5 million children, and our Leaders Forum, which gets them together, 250 of them, and they created a voting system to vote for. They created a list of, I think, 50 names, and from those 50 names, they created a small process to vote for people that they felt embodied real leadership. And as I keep saying, leadership with leadership skills, ethics, altruism, and decisive action. And on that note, we're starting for the first time ever these awards, and we're very excited that the first 5 winners of these awards have been chosen. And with that, I'd ask Sukrit to, Ms. Ishwaran actually, to announce the winners, and Sukrit then to play something about that. Come.
Well, as Shiv just explained, we have our Leaders Forum members have picked up 5 persons who embody the qualities that you see up on the screen. One particular person, according to our Leaders Forum students, embodied all these qualities. And so it's our pleasure to announce that our very first award is being given to Bill Gates.
At the same time, if you ask people across the United States, is the future going to be better than the past? Most say no. My kids will be worse off than I am. They think innovation won't make the world better for them or their children. So who's right? The people who say innovation will create new possibilities and make the world better? Or the people who see a trend toward inequality and a decline in opportunity and don't think innovation will change that? The pessimists are wrong, in my view, but they're not crazy. If innovation is purely market-driven and we don't focus on the big inequities, then we could have amazing advances and inventions that leave the world even more divided. We won't improve public schools. We won't cure malaria. We won't end poverty. We won't develop the innovations poor farmers need to grow food in a changing climate. If our optimism doesn't address the problems that affect so many of our fellow human beings, then our optimism needs more empathy. If empathy channels our optimism, we will see the poverty and the disease and the poor schools. We will answer with our innovations, and we will surprise the pessimists.
That was Bill speaking at Stanford during the commencement address. And so yeah, I'd just like to thank the foundation for this award on behalf of Bill. And I know that he would have loved to have been here tonight to tell me that himself, because people always say that at award ceremonies when the guy can't be there. They're like, oh, well, we sent him, and you don't know who I am. But Bill actually genuinely would like to be here, because what he said there is exactly what he believes. Because he is an impatient optimist, and of all the leadership qualities that I think he embodies, I think that's one of his best ones, because it's easy to be pessimistic, it's easy to be negative, and Bill isn't. You know, he knows a lot of stuff, he's very smart, but he knows that if you think you're going to fail, then you will, and if you don't think that, and if you are positive, then you'll succeed. I find that very inspiring, and I think it's also interesting that he said, you know, he's the most successful businessman in history. He said, if we focus on market-driven solutions alone for innovation, we're not going to succeed. So when he talks about innovation, it's not just making new stuff, it's actually inspiring people to do things differently. And he genuinely believes in that. And, you know, his story about how he became a leader, you know, goes back to him being a teenage boy in Seattle, and he lived next door to the University of Washington, where they had some of the first personal computers. And he was lucky enough, just complete luck, that he had access to these computers. And he'd stay there at weekends and at night, and he'd be making code before anyone knew what that was. And so he just got lucky. He got ahead of the curve. You know, you've seen The Social Network. You see that Mark Zuckerberg was just trying to meet girls and he invented Facebook by mistake or took someone else's idea. That's like right place, right time, and then being smart enough to figure out what to do with it. And he kept on going. And when Bill gets asked, what do you regret? And people always laugh because they're like, Bill Gates, what are you going to regret? Like, what went wrong? He says, I wish I'd started earlier. I wish I'd started giving away this money before I did, because then I'd be better at it. And the thing that he would like to say to you guys is that you're lucky because you're starting now. You've got so much time ahead of yourselves to figure out what you're good at, educate yourselves, and then figure out how you can take action effectively. And I think that's what's really powerful. And what's inspiring about Bill as well is that he never stops learning. So whenever he goes to external meetings, he's always really nice, but when he's talking to us, he can be pretty mean. He'll always ask the right question that you don't really have the answer to. And when you've shown the presentation with, like, you know, arrows and bubbles coming in and lots of nice colors, he's like, yeah, but what about that bit? And you're like, oh, I was hoping you'd not notice that bit. And he's like, so what's going on there? And it means that you have to really bring your A game to any meeting with Bill, because he's always read the brief and he always asks the right questions. And, you know, I talked about the EU with him, and he was like, on page 374 of the briefing book, it said that the EC was spending about 400 million euros on Congo, but then on page 265, it said it was 350 euros. What is that? And I was like, oh, no. Well, but it's difficult because they're different funds, and some of them are regional, and some of them... And he's like, oh, whatever. But that was a test, that he reads it. And so if he's going to read it, then I need to know what I'm doing, and anyone who's talking to him needs to be really focused. Because if you're not serious, if you haven't done your homework, if you're not going to work hard, then go home. Like, don't bother. But if you're going to get involved, then do it seriously and learn your stuff and go for it. And then I think the final thing that I find inspiring about Bill is his bravery. If he can be brave, then we can be brave. And that's what he'd want to say as well, is that all of us, he didn't just turn out as Bill Gates, you know. He was just a geeky teenage kid in Seattle. But his dad really inspired him to get involved in this kind of stuff. You know, his dad's 89 years old, and he actually founded the Gates Foundation when Bill was still at Microsoft. And his dad, at 89 years old, still comes into the Gates Foundation pretty much every day. And every new group of staff that starts the foundation, Bill Sr. comes to their induction and tells them a bit about where it started. And they want to keep it as a family foundation because that's where Bill got inspired by. Melinda Gates is also constantly, it's not easy to argue with Bill. So that's why it's always good when Melinda's there. Because she's like, well, you know, that's an interesting idea, Bill, but how about this? And he's like, okay. He has his daughter, Jen, was at the Global Citizen Festival last night. So she was learning about these issues, and she's 19, and she's figuring it out. So the earlier you start, the better you're going to be. And he's brave just because last night, you know, that was him at his best, because there he's talking to really clever people who are sitting down and listening. Last night, he was talking after Malala, and Bono. That's tough. Bono loves being in front of 60,000 people. He knows how to do that. That's his job. Bill was never meant to be that guy. Bill didn't go into computers so that one day he could stand in front of 60,000 people and try and get them to care about poverty. But he does it because he knows that actually when he started off giving his money away, he thought that the best thing he could do was just give the money away. And he realized pretty quickly that there is actually quite a lot of money out there, but there aren't very many people talking about these issues to people who aren't already interested. And people listen to him. And so even though he doesn't like being the celebrity, even though he doesn't like being that guy, that's what he's got to do. And so when he comes to Brussels and he's talking with me about the Congo, he's got to meet some boring officials, and it's Tuesday and he's jet lagged. And I'm thinking, Bill, if I'm you, I'm on a boat. I'm cruising through the Mediterranean. I'm not in Brussels talking to some guy about the Congo. But he does that because he knows it's important. And he goes on stage in front of 60,000 people who are waiting for Pearl Jam and don't really want to listen to Bill Gates because he knows that it's important. And I find that really inspiring. So I hope, all the stuff that the previous speaker said, Dr. Amso, about how to be a good leader and those tips and those values, I think do take them with you. The values, the mission statement of the Gates Foundation is that all lives have equal value. and everyone deserves a healthy and productive life. And when we think about our core values, we have 4 which are written all over the place, and they're innovation, collaboration, rigor, and communication. It's been a long weekend. But that's the thing. You need to know where you're going. Bill always has a target in mind. He knows where he's going. And with any problem that you give him, he says, okay, like, what's our taxonomy? How are we breaking this problem down into its composite parts? That's why he likes vaccines. How many vaccines are going out? How many things are coming in? We can measure that. What gets measured gets done. So you have your taxonomy, which breaks it down to its composite parts, and then you say, okay, these are all the different parts. How much money and how many people are we using in each of those parts, and do we have the balance right? And he does that for pretty much anything. And he keeps on learning constantly. He's always reading. He's always trying to find out more. And he always wants to find a harder problem. So, you know, he figured out computers. Like, making money seemed to go quite well for him. And then he thought, well, I've done this. You know, I could keep on churning out more computers and earning more money. But I mean, when he got asked, you know, what did you do with all your money? Why are you giving it away? He says, well, you know, I really like cheeseburgers. And I eat really good cheeseburgers. But like, I'm one person, and there are only so many cheeseburgers that I can eat. So after I've eaten those cheeseburgers, then what do I do with the rest of it? What's the most interesting thing I can do? And for him, the most interesting thing is, like, how can I take on those problems that no one else knows how to solve? How can I help eradicate polio? Because he can't eradicate polio. Everyone's like, oh, Bill, you're so powerful. It's like, no. His power comes from the fact that we work with all these different people, and different people bring different things to bear, and he does the stuff that other people can't. And that's smart. And he keeps on focusing in on how do you solve these problems, and what's the next problem? How do you solve malaria? How do you actually get all this other stuff going? And I think going back to the education point, he brings as well the fact that you can get the vaccines out, but if mothers are scared of their children being vaccinated, how do you make that work? So you need the ethics, and you need the heart and the head, and bringing those two pieces together is very important. And I just think it would be good to pay tribute to Julia Gillard as well, because she's pretty important. She used to be the Prime Minister. She could have been anywhere this evening. She's meeting every half an hour, and she wanted to come and talk to you guys, because all of these politicians who are doing all this stuff, they always want to come and talk to young people, because talking to politicians is so depressing. They don't believe that anything can be done. They're like, oh, well, you know, we tried that, it didn't work. Sorry, it's very difficult. If you knew as much as I did, you'd understand why it's so hard and why nothing's going to change. And it's like, well, what's the point then? We might as well go home. And that's why you want to talk to young people, because you guys, you haven't tried it and failed it yet. You can find different ways of looking at things. And Julia Gillard or Bill Gates or whoever will always want to come and talk to young people because they want to try and get some of that enthusiasm back. It's like, oh, thank God, that's why I'm doing this. Because you guys care and you guys are trying new things. And if there's one thing that they can do, they might not be able to solve all the problems they're dealing with in politics and the global stuff in Syria. Well, that's pretty tough. That's hard. But you come to talk to young people and you're like, if I can inspire even one of you to do something and to make you believe that you could be something that you didn't previously think that you could, then that's like, good, I can sleep well at night. And they'll always come and they'll always talk with you. And I thought that point about hope was great. Because why has the Pope got this reception? It's because he's bringing hope. He's the Hope Pope. And everyone wants a bit of hope. So if you can all go home and bring some of the hope that you've got from this week back and take that into whatever you go on and do, then you'll be showing the sort of leadership that Bill Gates did, which is why he won this award, which one of you might win one day. So thanks very much.
Okay, the second winner of this prize is not actually a person, it's an organization. And there is a connection. The first winner of this prize actually introduced us to this organization. I was at Davos in January this year, and I got an invitation from Bill and Melinda Gates to attend something for an organization I'd really not heard of. And it was far up on the hill, and it was cold and windy, and I felt, oh, who's going to trudge up there? But since it was Bill and Melinda, and I felt, you know, let's go and not be rude because we'd accepted. So we trudged up the hill, reached, and I had the most incredible evening of my life, listening to the tremendous work being done by a small organization of a few Australians and some fantastic board members who'd come to the US and had started something called Global Poverty Project. So I've had the privilege to get to know them over the last year, and I've had the privilege to get to know some of the board members, and I know that a number of people from Global Poverty Project are here. We had someone work with them this summer. Jay worked with them this summer, and they visited India a few times We visited them a number of times here, and we're very excited to hopefully bring them to India, to have an event in India which uses the technologies and ideas that have been developed by Global Poverty Project to show that India is part of, and India's youth is part of a social movement to support the Sustainable Development Goals on the project, and that we're one world and we're all working at it together. And so I'd like to invite GPP, Wei, Martha, and other members from GPP on stage, please, to come and say a few words and to receive the award.
We want to ignite people's desire for connection. The power of digital technology can bring people together and break down barriers. That's where Global Citizen comes in, the way to connect millions of people and take action together to help create a better world. This year represents an incredible opportunity for people to show their support for these issues, to use their voice, to use their time, and to go beyond their own communities to connect with something larger. We need a movement of global citizens, from world leaders to people everywhere, to help solve the world's biggest problems.
First time in history, we have the means to end extreme poverty.
Our social power can ensure governments, businesses, and NGOs all play their part.
We can use that power to grab the world's attention and shape the systems and policies, keeping people poor.
People can thrive, will thrive, given the opportunity.
But we must act as one.
I am a global citizen.
I am a global citizen.
I am a global citizen.
A global citizen.
Join us on the platform that unites our passion and amplifies our voice against extreme poverty.
Become a global citizen. Unlock your power.
Thanks so much, Shiv, and I'm really glad that my vigorous campaigning for the last 12 months has resulted in this victory for GPP. As it happens, we actually have with us Martha Freya, board member, Kalpane, who is a volunteer intern, and also Vicky, who started as a staff member a few months ago. I thought it might be interesting getting to hear from them for maybe like a minute each or so about their experiences with GPP and how they found it. Maybe we'll start with Vicky.
Sure. Thank you for having me, and Shiv, thank you so much for the invitation. My story is a little bit interesting. I actually started in the world of entertainment 3 years ago, and I was introduced to GPP by the co-founder, or founder, our CEO, Hugh Evans. He did a Live Below the Line challenge at my job, my former job at AEG Live, and I was so amazed by his speech, and immediately after he left, I went to my supervisor and I asked him, is there any way I could get involved with GPP? Can I volunteer? What can I do to help? And he introduced me to Justine, who's not present right now, but she's a phenomenal woman. And a week after I met with her, we had lunch. She shared her story with me, and I kept in touch with her throughout the 3 years. I volunteered at the different events that they had, the annual festival. And this past May, I made the transition to be a full-time employee at GPP, and I left the world of entertainment, the very fun world of concerts, and I followed my heart. So I'm not that different in age than you all. I'm maybe 3 or 4 years older than you all. I just want to encourage you all to just follow your heart. If your heart's in it, go after it and put your all into it, and everything else will fall into place. So that's my journey, and that's how I ended up at the Global Poverty Project, and I don't regret it at all. I'm totally in love with the organization, the cause, and everyone that I work for and work with. And thank you for having me.
Hi, everyone. So basically my background's in nursing, and I am in the global policy and advocacy sector at GPP. Working at GPP has been an incredible experience, and I'm super grateful to be part of a global movement that shares a vision to end extreme poverty by 2030. And I guess I just want to say that it's so easy to be drawn into the tragedies of today, and sometimes they get put in the too hard basket, but being at GPP and its movement takes these problems out of that basket and says that we can make a change, and it's exciting and it's creative. The atmosphere is incredible in the office, and it reinforces the narrative of possibility. And I guess this possibility is at the heart of human progress and will always be. So I just want to say that my name is Kalpani and I am a global citizen.
My name is Martha Frey, and I am very proud to serve on the board of the Global Poverty Project. I was introduced to GPP by my daughter, who was an undergraduate at Cambridge when Hugh Evans was there. And I was so thrilled by her. Pardon me, I stayed up really late last night. I was so thrilled that she had caught the bug of social activism. And what impressed me about GPP right from the get-go is that it was focused, and it was intelligent, and it was audacious, and it was optimistic. And it's all about you. It's all about all of us waking up, having compassion, recognizing that this is our planet, and if we don't take care of it, who is going to? And that if we band together, if we collaborate as citizens, as philanthropists, as corporations, as governments and NGOs, we can put a force together that's never been seen before. So all of you, you are the change. And how exciting it is that you have this leadership development opportunity, and how exciting it is that we can all band together to make a difference in the world. Thanks.
Well, from the votes that came in, the next winner of one of our awards is Emma Watson. Well, she's a goodwill ambassador for the UN. The kids voted for her, and we have a young intern from UN who works with the He and She project to please come up and receive the award. Mandanika.
I think it is right that I am paid the same as my male counterparts. I think it is right that I should be able to make decisions about my own body. I think it is right that women be involved on my behalf in the policies and the decisions that will affect my life. I think it is right that socially I am afforded the same respect as men. But sadly, I can say that there is no one country in the world where all women can expect to receive these rights. No country in the world can yet say that they have achieved gender equality. These rights I consider to be human rights. I am inviting you to step forward, to be seen, and to ask yourself, if not me, who? If not now, when?
Our next winner, I think, you'll all endorse with all hands down, because the next winner of our award is no less a person than the Reverend Pope Francis. I wonder how many of you all recognize the music. It's the Pope's song. It's from his own album. And we have William Godelli, who is a great admirer of the Pope, who's going to receive the award on his behalf. Thank you, Bill. Well, that brings us to the end of a wonderful evening. I'd like to express the thanks of tGELF. Bill, don't run away as yet. We would like to give a special token of thanks to the Teachers College, Columbia University, for all the support that they have lent us in the organizing of this event. All right, we still have one more award I find that we need to give out. Can anybody guess to whom this award would go, you think, from the point of view of the values that we put up on stage? Any guesses? No? I'm too small a fry for that. Someone to do with education. Yes, Salman Khan. He's got the huge number of votes from our young people for scaling, for showing the opportunity and way of scaling education. And we request, as Salman Khan could not be present today, we request one of our young scholars from the West Coast who will be meeting him to receive the award, Chandrika Srivastav.
In 2008, and there were some venture capitalists who wanted to fund this. They were ready to write the check, and it was tempting because, like, hey, maybe have your cake and eat it too type of thing. But I literally, I was getting letters every day from people all over the planet about how much it was helping them. And in my brain, and it wasn't that coherent, it was actually an emotional decision. It was much more of like, this feels like we're at an inflection point in history, as big as any, as big as the Industrial Revolution or the Enlightenment or bigger. And it feels like we need something like this to be an institution for this inflection point, just a public good. And I kind of just thought about, well, let's imagine let's put my science fiction, let's imagine a home run in either use case. As a for-profit, maybe it turns into a multi-billion-dollar organization. And even, look, you can still have a lot of scale and impact and do good things there. But who knows what happens in the next generation, what happens when it becomes public. And I used to study these companies.
Also, you're going to be suspect if it's for-profit, that you're somehow making decisions that enrich you as opposed to enrich them.
Exactly. What's your motivations there versus, well, what if it's a home run as a not-for-profit, which in a lot of ways is harder, but what if it could be the next Smithsonian? What if it could be, and it was delusional for a guy operating out of a closet, but it's less delusional now. It just felt epic.
Well, thank you very much. I think the awards, we've started something. We've started the beginning of a community that we all jointly recognize as a community of ethical, altruistic leaders. And this is not a community decided upon by all of us at the foundation. It's decided upon by the young people in our schools that are looking at what's happening on the planet and are voting with their own thoughts and ideas. And of course, we shortlist 50. We ask them to put in their names and thoughts, but we kind of curate the list, and after that, it goes to all these young people and they vote. And we're going to do this every year, so we'll slowly build a community of leaders that young people can look up to as embodying the core values of leadership, ethics, altruism, and a bias for action, decisive action. I'd like to thank all of you, all our guests who came this evening, took your precious time. Particularly, I'd like to thank the people that attended the conference last night, the concert last night, and I know that many of them slept at 8 in the morning, 7 in the morning. Many of them I saw at the concert. I see Donna there and Tom. It was a wonderful concert. And I know all of the young leaders forum members who attended it also stayed up very late, but we're all here only about half an hour late this morning. So I want to thank all the young leaders forum members for coming from all over, from Stanford, from California, from the Midwest, from the North, from the South, and from India to join us for this first inaugural Life conference in the US. I want to thank Bill Gordelli, who's helped us at Teachers College, helped us with the location and has been a partner with us in our journey from the beginning to build tGELF into what it is today. I'd like to thank all the people who came to collect the awards. It's very kind of you to come and spend some time with us. I'd like to thank Mrs. Ishwaran and the team, because they've done a fantastic job, really, and the scholars who've actually put this together. So the team has worked closely with the young leaders, and we wanted the young leaders to sort of take ownership and do this themselves, rather than us doing it from India. And 90% of the work was done by the young leaders, and every year it's going to get better and better, and we're going to make this an annual function. And I'd like to thank GPP, the Global Poverty Project, for their support and encouragement and enthusiasm for this work. Wei, thank you. It was your idea that we come to New York. We were going to do this at Brown University, but Wei said, why don't we do this in New York? And I said, okay. And that was only about 2 months ago. So we pivoted and we decided to do our first inaugural event in New York. And now I think following a vote of the Young Leaders Forum members, they said they want to do this every year. So we're going to do this every year, and we're very much looking forward to this becoming a fixture in the most busy week in the year in New York, but a fixture where we have time with our young scholars, young leaders from around the world who gather together, and we work together to think about how we can make the world a place that's more equitable, more just, and more in harmony with the natural, the environment and everything else. Because I see, unfortunately, right now the world heading in a direction of incredible inequity and suffering, and we need to correct that. And I think with great leadership on the planet, we will be able to do that. And we're very delighted to have all of you here, because we know that all of you share in the same journey with us. So thank you all very much. And if there's anyone I haven't recognized but has been integral to this, I apologize. But it was a late night for us after the concert, and I'm going to go back and crash right now. But thank you all very much for joining us, and please join us outside for a little drink. Thank you very much.
tGELF, leading the change.